Welcome back, denizens of the Omniverse. We are back again with a special guest today. We had Matt last time, and we've got another one that we've pulled in. Mr. Liam O'Brien here from Critical Role and many, many other things. How are you doing today, Liam?
Michael, thank you for having me. I'm doing good. I am juggling 50 things like every day, but happy to take a minute out and shoot the shit about anything you want to talk about the Mighty Nine, about all things Critical Role, the world, whatever you got on deck. Maybe we can leave the world a little better than we found it after
That's
hour.
the goal. That's the goal at the end of the day, man. How are you holding up? How's the holidays been treating you so far?
The holidays were good. They were sort of humble and cozy for us this year. We've traveled in past years, but this time we circled the wagons, and I have some family in and around Los Angeles, and we hosted for both holidays, really back to back, Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we did a lot of cooking and a lot of board game playing and card game playing, and we threw stuff. Sometimes my family will throw. We have no TV in our living room, but we do have a projector that we just pull out and we'll throw things on a blank wall. We watched Stranger Things. It was an event. It was an event for the holiday.
Yeah, I think us and a lot of other people were all kind of tuning in to see how that was going to come to an end. It's a nice little setup. Sounds like you guys have a little projector throw up for the whole fam.
Yeah. It's like doing a drive-in movie theater.
I've never had the pleasure of like a legit drive-in.
I never have either, and I'm from the East Coast, and my mom and dad, they're both from upstate New York, and I go to a couple of places up there almost every single year. I think I've only missed 1 or 2 years in my life, and we drove past a drive-in like 5 minutes from this massive O'Brien. Well, I say massive O'Brien camp. The camp is not massive. The O'Brien family is massive, so there's way too many O'Briens cramming into a really great glorified shack on the side of a lake. And every year we pass by this movie theater, and I'd always tell myself I got to try it. And now it's closed. It closed the last time I drove past it. So don't put off for tomorrow what you could do today, folks.
Exactly. That's what got me on the con circuit again. With going out and actually like going to some of these places that are at least maybe if I can drive there, it'll be worth the effort, because there's always this like, maybe next year idea that I had. I was like, maybe it's not the right time. It's all this, that, and the other, whatever excuse you might have in the moment. And then like, you don't know if that person's going to be there the next time or around at all next time. So now I'm just like, we're making that. And then like when you guys, I ran out and saw Travis in Richmond, and then that's what led to me going to C2E2 and then to your live show. And I was like, well, you know what? They're all in one place. Might as well go. And I'm just, if there's an opportunity knocking, I'm trying not to miss at this point.
I think the last 2 times you swung by, I spotted you in the crowd both times.
Really?
Yeah. You recently were pretty close to stage.
Yeah, when I was at the Chicago show, I showed you guys when I was there. I was actually caught one of the rings you all tossed out into the crowd while I was halfway through a chicken tender.
Man, we're 5 seconds away from having a potato cannon or a t-shirt gun. That's that t-shirt cannon. That's the word. That's what I'm looking for.
Hey, you could try a potato gun. You might need to sign some waivers.
How did Critical Role end? Well,
they shot somebody in the face with a potato. Or a massive potato-sized D20. Why not? D12, rather, as we would like to go these days. Jesus. But I'll be at the Atlanta live show in a few months, so I have that one already plotted out. So I had so much fun that first time. That was, I didn't know what to expect. It was just banana. It was insane.
Oh, man. There's so much fun. The energy that you get from thousands of people all at once, it's just like a massive battery. And I got this a little bit, I started on stage when I was a younger actor, and I love everything we do. What I'm doing now beats the dreams I had as a young actor, but the just the adrenaline rush you get from people kind of like coming along with you for every twist and turn of what's happening on stage was
Hmm.
great even back then. And the largest theater I ever did back then was once in a 2,000 seat theater. I did the Pioneer Theater in Utah doing a Martin McDonough play. But now, we're dinging past 10K, and that it is like it is like an amorphous creature, a crowd that size. It is so cool, and everyone's having, you know, I have so many good memories of like the crowd erupting. Like one of our live shows, Travis rolled a natural 20 at the most clutch moment at the towards the end of the live show, and the audience
Hmm.
lost their minds. Conversely, when we were in London, Matt threw a pretty serious moment at me early on
Hmm.
for we were doing the Mighty Nine characters, and the audience was massive, but you could hear a pin drop, and the quiet was palpable. The live shows are wild, and I hope we can do them as long as we can.
Yeah, it's like if you rewound time, like I would not have placed money on D&D selling out a stadium
Uh-uh.
in the way that you guys or Dimension 20 or any of these other players in the sphere. It's wild like how much that's blown up, and especially considering like the stigma that it started off with back in the day too.
Sure. Like, if I could time travel back to 12 or 13-year-old Liam, like first I have to explain what the internet was. That's the first step. And then once we spend 30 minutes breaking all that down, I could explain how it was used to put tabletop gaming onto like a global stage and
Hmm.
explode a hobby that I loved back then, and I love even more now as an adult. I love the internet for all of its boons and banes. There's no question that it's helped a lot of people be self-starters and just
Hmm.
get up and running without waiting for someone else to hand you a cookie. And it's so cool. This thing that so many of us for decades now and decades ago have done, just in your basement or your dining room table. And in the 80s it was hard to find other people, even harder than it is now,
Hmm.
to do it with you. And I love hearing when we do go to cons about people telling me about their games and about their new friend circles. And for me, what I've loved about Critical Role, we're afforded amazing creative opportunities, but even more than that, this game forged my closest circle of friends I've had in my life, because I've spent so much time with them. And role playing is sort of this supercharged shortcut to the quick with each
Hmm.
other, like emotionally and spiritually and creatively. And now, it felt so niche when I was a kid, and now it really feels like it's everywhere, to the point where Stranger Things is the massive television hit. It's a water cooler moment for planet Earth, and they close the whole thing with these kids finishing their campaign, which is something that I got intrinsically, but 30 years ago, I don't know, and I don't think
Hmm.
anybody would even understand what that meant, and now a lot of people do, and it's so cool to see something that I love so much being enjoyed by so many people.
When did you come into that early on when you were a kid? Did you play before all of this, or was that something you were introduced to later?
No, I did play as a kid. I don't think I was as deeply entrenched as Matt, who has been playing basically his whole life. But I played. I can remember being in seventh grade and someone in my grade school class having the D&D red box. I don't know
Hmm.
if you know what that is. It was sort of like a streamlined, quick fix version to help especially younger players understand what the game was. It was
Hmm.
more colorful and visually appealing, and just fast than the manuals were at that time. My copy is blurred out right about there, from when I was a kid. But somebody brought it into class, and I was like, "What is that?" Because the art. on the cover was so arresting, and
Mm-hmm.
he lent it to me for the weekend, and I went home and read through it like 5 times in a row. And you can run your own adventure just by yourself, like a choose your own adventure. And then I immediately started running a game for my closest friends, my closest nerdiest friends. Um, and then I did that from like probably my freshman year of high school through senior year. And then I was decided I made the crazy decision to go study acting and be an actor. And I think as a young man, I was like, well, I'm putting away childish things. I'm going off to be a serious actor. So it went away.
Mm-hmm.
It just went away for
No.
years. And then smash cut to 15 years ago ish, maybe. And I was directing Resident Evil 6. I did a lot of voiceover directing for games in the past, and I was the main VO director on that one. And Matt was cast as one of the leads in that game, and we just hit it off talking to the glass, working on it. And
Mm-hmm.
it quickly Dungeons and Dragons just got lobbed into the conversation. And then he, for several sessions, was like, "You should just come play with us one time." And at that moment, I had like a toddler and a baby, and I was like, "That sounds great. No, that'll never happen." But I always remembered it. And then
Mm-hmm.
once the kids were a bit older, some years later, Sam and I, who I've known the longest from this group, we formed a doofy podcast. With the premise was that we were two busy, tired dads in the voiceover business, and we would just shoot the shit about our days, and then we would pick a fun thing to do together because we felt like we weren't seeing each other enough at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And we played a game of Dungeons and Dragons. I said, I can double back and talk to Matt Mercer, who like multiple times tried to ask him if I wanted to play with him. Maybe he'd want to like just get together for beers some night and run a game. And he ended up doing it for my birthday.
Aw,
Then the rest is history.
that's wild how
Yeah.
all that just kind of fell into place. I did want to come back to that because I asked the Matt the kind of the same question. He just seemed to kind of trip into a lot of this, as far as like discovering the appeal for acting and all that, which I think started off a little bit with him dabbling with D&D and all that kind of stuff earlier on too, because it is kind of this almost pseudo innocent training for it in a way that you don't really
100%.
consider, especially when you really kind of get into it. It's one thing that I really started to fall in love with, especially I think more when I got older, when I was a little bit more comfortable with it. Because I played a couple times when I was in middle school and high school, but never like too much because I didn't really have a whole lot of people that were also into it. So it was this kind of thing that kind of came and then went for a really long time until I met some people at work and we got up a table for a while. And it's just been so much fun. But um, you seemed like once you kind of like acting was like the thing for
Mhm.
you from the jump. Was there ever anything else, or were you just that was something you were drawn to was
Well,
storytelling,
I really
performing?
enjoyed it as a teenager. Like these shelves are littered with all the books, and some new books, but lots of the books that I read growing up that fueled my imagination. And I was drawn to fantasy, and I've read a ton of Stephen King. And I love fiction, love fiction. And then when I was in high school, someone dragged me to an audition for theater, and I mean, I'm sure I was terrible, but it felt like I was good at it.
Mm,
Um, and I just had so much fun, and I felt like I'd found my people. I remember my freshman year in high school, I didn't really know what I was doing. My grades weren't that great. I had a couple friends, but for sure got bullied a lot. I was a typical doofus in high school, and I didn't know, like all kids, it takes you a while to figure out who you are. And it wasn't until I started messing around on stage with these new friends that I was like, oh yeah, I feel I fit in here. And I didn't want that to stop. And, I did seem to have a bit of a knack for it, at least at that age, at that level. And there was a moment I kind of thought, and I applied to schools that had nothing to do with acting because it seemed like such a crazy idea
yeah.
to pursue it. So I applied to schools for, I'm there. I almost went to Wesleyan in the
Mm-hmm.
Northeast, and probably would have ended up like an English teacher, which would have been great. But my parents, I'm lucky, and my parents were really supportive the entire time through high school, and they were supportive off into the next level. And I'm sure that they were thought it was as crazy as I did, but it didn't matter. They stuck by me. Um, and I made my way through NYU, the Tisch School at NYU, and I was barely out when one of my teachers plopped me into an off-Broadway play, a Pinter play called The Hot House. And
Mm-hmm.
then I was in New York for, I forget how long, like 3, 4, 5 years, just plunking around doing off-Broadway. And I traveled to different states to do regional productions as well. And I was doing a four-man version of Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare's R&J, which is a show that made the rounds all over the country after some success in New York City. And the man who played the nurse to my Juliet, a guy by the name of Crispin Freeman, who you've heard probably in 50 Things, he had only just started dubbing anime himself, maybe a year or two prior, and we just
Mm-hmm.
got along and talked about and Japanese animation and role playing games and video games and just all the nerd stuff. And like he traveled with anime on him on DVD at that time. We watched a bunch, and when we got back to New York, he's like, "Hey, I have an audition, and they're looking for more people. Do you want to?" And that's what started voiceover for me. I was fortunate enough to book the first thing that I ever auditioned for voiceover, and that led to the next to the next. And I still never thought I was going to leave New York. I thought I was going to stay there forever. Um, but especially after 9/11, I think a lot of people's snow globes got shaken at that point. And my
Yeah,
wife is
for
from
sure.
here, and she's like, let's get out of here. Let's just go try something different. And I thought, I wasn't going to go. We'll go for a year and then we'll turn around and that'll be it. But maybe this, I'm starting to do a tiny bit of VO in New York. Maybe that'll lead to something in LA. And I love California. I can't imagine leaving it now. And I love the business I'm a part of,
Mm.
the industry that I'm a part of. And I've worked with so many creative people over the years, even before Critical Role. I've lifelong friends. One of my favorite things as I made my way sort of like through my career was getting to work in voiceover sessions with people who are a little older than me, who were in things that I loved as a kid, like Jennifer Hale comes to mind. I played the
Mm-hmm.
original Baldur's Gate on a computer back when it was released, and I think that was one of her first video games, so it was trippy to work with her. Or my first, I'll never forget my first original animation here in the States. I did Wolverine and the X-Men, and
Mm-hmm.
prior to then I'd always just been solo in the booth for the kinds of, like, typically in many video games, especially earlier. Now there's so much performance capture, but earlier you just be you in the booth with the director. And this was my first time working on an animated series where I was in the room, and we used to call it the danger room, and we nerded out just to be
Ah,
working on the X-Men. But I stood next to Steve Bloom, whose work I love, Cowboy Bebop I love, um, and Steve's just like a dear friend now, and I'm a senior, a senior member of the voiceover community, and I am also enjoying meeting the younger actors making their way up, and some of them are like, I've listened to you. So it's really kind of touching to think of it as like this, like, cyclical um sort of
right.
artisan craftsman path.
How's that feel now when you're at that point where you have like this other generation coming in and you're that person for them? What does that feel like? Do you used to have any kind of disconnect with that or bump
That's
into that
sweet.
at some
It's sweet
points?
because I can remember it doesn't feel like long ago when I was in that, had those shoes on. Um, and I found the voiceover community in LA to be, I think most do, just very friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Every corner of the industry has got, end of the world has got its kooks in it. But by and large, this corner of the entertainment industry feels a little more friendly to me than others that I wandered through. And a lot of people, I just feel like I should pay it forward to newer actors I meet, because I've had a lot of mentors in life, and I'm grateful for them, and lucky enough to count many of them as friends now. And so, if I can do that for other people, sweet.
Hell yeah, man. That's the thing I try to do, like even in my sphere, like whatever this is, like anytime I see somebody's starting out, I always try to give what little advice I can give from where I'm at. Not that I'm like huge or anything, but like I mean, this is something that I do almost full time now. So
Yeah,
like,
you seem to have a
it's
pretty steady moving train going.
yeah, it's a train.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm always like you guys, probably not nearly as busy, but like I feel like it some days, man. But I still keep my day job though because I'm too afraid to like trust YouTube with anything
Hmm.
though.
Hmm.
But um, you guys, like you said, like you kind of came in with the onset of the what I guess I don't know what else to call it, but the anime revolution in the West,
Hmm.
like that whole like even before it really picked up, like you were tackling projects before that like late 90s, mid to late 90s wave really started crushing in.
Yeah.
So um what was that like seeing that? Or did you watch anime before that, or was that just something you
Sure.
found through working with it?
No, no. I mean, at first I was watching anime before I knew I was watching it, like many people from my generation,
Mm-hmm.
because things like Gotcha Man and Voltron were all brought over, but they were not like it wasn't presented to us as little tykes as anything other than another cartoon to watch.
Right.
But by the time I was in high school, I was going into New York City and trying to find like VHS tapes of stuff. I remember one friend who had like VHS tapes that were like copies of copies of copies of shows that had aired in
Yeah.
Japan. Um, but by the time I got to one of my formative memories, one of my best friend as a kid, his father, who I still know is a really cool guy, was an artist, is an artist, and he went on to work in a really unique corner of the entertainment industry. But he loved all this kind of stuff too, and he brought me to see he and his son to see in New York City. We went and saw Nausicaä Valley of the Wind
Mm-hmm.
on a movie in a movie theater, and now Miyazaki is lauded the world around, and so many people know, he's held right up there with Walt Disney. But when I got taken to see this movie, I didn't know what it was. It was the earliest days of me starting to understand that there was, so much incredible work coming out of Japanese animation, and it was unlike anything I'd ever seen. And I think from that movie onward, I was hooked, and I can go through a litany of things I watched. Ghost in the Shell, the original movie, or Armitage. Akira is one of my probably top five favorite movies of all time. Still,
Mm-hmm.
Bubblegum Crisis, on a Jinro, on and on and on. Blood the Last Vampire, and I never really stopped watching anime to some degree. So getting to find like a small trap door to crawl into and work on maybe some lesser known titles, and
Mm-hmm.
then further and further has been great, and I still love it. I know what you're talking about. There definitely is, or there was. It was considered a divide between, well, there's American animation, and it's like, oh, that's just
Mm-hmm.
dubbing. Um, but everyone like me who grew up thinking it was the coolest shit ever are now in creative positions of choice and power, and are taking these things that they were inspired by and emulating or honoring or bouncing back and forth. And I love, you see Japanese animation inspiring things in animation here and vice versa, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just a game of ping pong.
It's so fun watching that evolution, I think, because like, I grew up in the 90s. I was born late 80s. So like I came into that wave as it was kind of forming. Like you said, like with Voltron and stuff, like I kind of grew up on that. And Speed Racer, I think, was probably the first one I ever
Mhm.
saw without knowing what anime was, but it was just there. And then it just kind of became this kind of cultural storm that you guys kind of got to bring in. Cause I think
Mhm.
my earliest, I'm sure I didn't know until like looking through a lot of your credits at one point, like with Sailor Moon. I think you did some work in that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, more recently,
Um,
more recently, yeah.
yeah, and then Naruto, I think, was the big one where, I think it was the first time I was like, that guy
Hmm.
with Gara. Um, and then onward, man. Like it's just like you guys as a crew is like the voice of my childhood in a lot of ways, and it's kind of insane. Um, but you also, like you said, you kind of acting was a something you were very much so drawn to, but you also, like you mentioned just a little bit ago, um, you've been in the director's chair as well. So you've kind of started to, I don't know if that would be an evolution or an escalation
Hmm.
or whatever, but how do you feel about directing others rather than being the one in the booth? What's that like for you?
I love it. When I was doing it, I don't do it so much anymore. I think I directed a ton before Critical Role and then the first couple of years, but then things have gotten busier and busier and busier. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, we're like creating this road together, so it deserves and demands all my attention. But especially when I was a gig performer, as much as I loved it, going in as an actor for like say a 4 hour session for a role in a larger project, you really have only this tiny little view of what's going on. And
Mm-hmm.
I found working as a director in video games closer to my work in theater because I had it was a bigger picture thing and I knew all the moving parts and what was needed and was working on character arc and I could just see the bird's eye view on the whole thing. And then also, it's fun to hang around and tootle about with other performers. And I love both being surprised by performers or maybe occasionally helping them reach the thing that they or we were looking for a
Mm-hmm.
given scene or character. Creative work can be fun. Sometimes it's difficult. But really, the real secret to directing is good casting. I feel like as a voice director, like 90% of your work is casting well.
Mm-hmm.
And then that means that most of your recording is just sort of easy street because you've done a lot of work at the beginning to get the right person for the job. And then like 10% of
Mm-hmm.
the time, there's some hitch or issue. And then you have to like wake up and fire all engines are going, trying to make sure that you can figure out what you need when it's not quite working, but that's only occasionally.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite project that you've directed that stands out?
Hmm. I mean, I like different things for different reasons. Resident Evil 6 comes to mind only because it was a huge project. It was a large
Mm-hmm.
cast. I was hired to not only be the voice director for the project, but also I was on the performance capture set. There were two directors in from Japan directing everybody, and they just wanted to make sure they had somebody there who had like a good rapport with the performers here and like their English was a little more limited, so they just wanted to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that like I could be sort of an intermediary, and but it was fun and creative and um great to just be, again, it's like being on a stage. It's a performance capture stage but still a stage, and that's always exciting. And that was probably, I had adapted scripts for anime before then, but I
Mm-hmm.
also got very involved with the script for that one and helped sort of go through and make sure that things that happened early in Act One synced up with Act Five and polished dialogue and just I felt like I had my fingers in every aspect of it. And I met some of the best friends of my life working on it. Directed Matt on that. Directed Laura and one of the leads. Troy Baker was in there. Ton of great actors. But then I could also point to shows I directed, like anime dubs. I've loved working on Naruto. I directed a ton of video games because there were a ton of fighting games for Naruto, and I would pinch hit direct when Mary
There's
Elizabeth.
so many.
Yeah, yeah. I assume more than 50. That's what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like there was an early anime show I directed called Gun Sword, which was a,
Mm-hmm.
a a really cool mech series with a lot of style and panache, and I still have close friends who worked on that with. And I love the medium of anime and localizing it. I love the challenges that come with it, both as a writer, where
Mm-hmm.
you're taking a very literal translation and then just sort of treating it like a Rubik's cube until you get a line that both sounds good to our ear here and also matches the flapping with all its pauses without sounding like stilted Shatner acting. It can be done,
Yeah.
but it takes time. It takes more time to adapt a script and find the phrasing that can work naturally rather than just like putting in a indiscriminate chop in the middle of a longer line.
Right.
Um, and then as an actor, it's so technical that I feel like because I spent and Laura in our group, Sam, all of them, everyone in our group who's worked on anime will tell you this, that like it is so technical and trickier to pull off believably that I feel like when I work on anything that's not anime, it feels like an anime I've learned to do mixed martial arts with my hands tied behind my back. And then when you go into a room where you're not trying to match picture, you know, your hands are free and
Mm-hmm.
suddenly you're like your fists are moving 90 miles an hour. I attribute dubbing anime for so long to making me as good on mic as I am now.
No, I would definitely, I get that, because like you said, there's like so much constraints with, because you got so many things you kind of got to stick to, because you got, there's no going back, tweaking, adjusting. You got what you got on screen and you got to work with that
Yeah. And it
and then
forces you
still get the
to,
point across.
yeah, and it just sort of trial by fire, baptism by fire gets you ready for cold reading, which is a
Mm-hmm.
big part of the, a lot of actors, incredible actors, and I know this as a director, and I've worked on bigger projects where like on camera talent comes through, and some people come in and they're naturals and they're excellent, but some people really are better if they have time to digest the script and live with it and
Mm-hmm.
come in ready. But cold reading is a unique skill, and it's not everyone kind of takes to it. And so, like the best, I think the best voice actors that I've worked with, they're just great at cold reading, about just picking something up, making a choice, and running with it.
Does that happen more frequently than not?
Uh,
That you do like a cold read?
yeah, most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Again, performance capture, which is such a large part of video games now, is a different story. That's like performing on stage. Things get rehearsed, it's memorized, but even on the games that have that, everything else, like when the character is running around in the world,
Mm-hmm.
that's all done cold reading. I'll just use Last of Us as an example because it's uh, as good as it is. I also worked on it. Um, they meted out those scenes and rehearsed them and tweaked them and shined those diamonds until they were super bright. But then those same actors, excellent actors, had to come in and then just see scripts for the first time, going like, all right, remember scene A and scene C, we're going to record all of the stuff that happens as the player controls
Mm-hmm.
you from one cutscene to another, and that's all cold reading. So cold reading never really goes away, even in video games.
Um, when you're crafting a character on your, like for your games, whether it be for your own stuff or Critical Role, um, what do you kind of prioritize when you're going into it? Is it just whatever you're kind of feeling in the moment, or do you kind of, how much pre-planning goes into that?
Well, they're totally different animals. Anytime I work for someone else on their project, as fun as it is, you're trying to be inspired by like the audition material that you get and do something that's fun for you, but that's within the realm of what they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to build. Um, so you're trying to meet their needs while also still trying to be alive and enjoy yourself or dig deep. But for anything that like that we do a Critical Role where we're creating a character, that's closer to being a writer actor and thinking about the kinds of stories we want to tell. People love to. It's a long running joke that Critical Role is scripted, and some people out there still believe it. Eh. But we have no idea what's going to come at us. We do know the kinds of characters we want to play, or the kinds of stories we want to tell,
Mm-hmm.
or the sort of personalities we want to sit inside of. Um, it just depends on what the thing is. I don't know if you've ever seen any of the Darrington Brigade live shows that we did through Critical Role. Um,
No, not yet.
we made a group of heroes that at a certain time in our history, we thought we were going to be bringing on the road a lot. It
Mm-hmm.
was a very wacky group, and I played a big, dumb, happy, lovable ogre. Um, who I still love, and I was like, this was going to be my guy who's just a joy to be all the time. But
Mm-hmm.
I know what happened. COVID happened and derailed
Yeah, that
derailed
thing.
those
That little
plans.
thing.
Yeah, that's what happened. But when I thought about doing Caleb, that came off of understanding the kind of role playing depths we could go to after doing our first campaign together, and realizing the opportunities we had for storytelling, and me creating the sort of challenging acting role that I probably have been craving my entire life. So I built my own Hamlet essentially,
Mm-hmm.
so that I could feel high highs and low lows, and just all the colors of the performance rainbow. And still like that too. Anytime we're like any one shots we do, and we do a lot, or
Mm-hmm.
mini series, now it's like, what haven't I done yet? I'm just looking for new ways to sort of enjoy the ride or the craft.
At this point, with the shows and like you said, the one shots and the different things you get to do through that, whether it be a new campaign or just like you said, the one shots or whatever you're doing, you get to just kind of like, what have I not done? And just like
Hmm.
check off this, and this. Like you said, like with and I think I talked about this with the others as well, because unfortunately you had to miss the junket whenever I was doing the press for Mighty Nine. Um, one of the things that obviously it came up is like with Vox Machina, it's a little more of your kind of, I don't want to say cookie cutter. That's the wrong word. Like your your typical fantasy archetypes, your hero
Hmm.
types, your rogue, the ranger, all that kind of stuff. And they're going off on the adventure. They meet at the pub. It's kind of like it's your template, getting comfortable, and then you
Yeah.
guys just go buck that real
Hmm.
hard in the next time around. Um,
Well, and that
with
mirrors how it
Caleb,
happened at our table too, because the first campaign was an accident. It was us. It all started with what was supposed to be a single game played over beers one night in Matt and Maricia's little apartment
mm-hmm,
in the valley. And so all we did, we weren't like, what's the role I wish to play for 10 years? It was just like, what'll be fun with beer and pretzels tonight. And I would like to believe that those archetypical characters found real depth by the end of the story we told. And listen, I know there's a difference between our two animated series. Vox Machina is lean and fast moving, and Mighty Nine, we've had the pleasure of marinating in the story, but
mm-hmm.
it's a mistake to write off the Vox Machina show. People are not ready for the seasons to come.
Dude, I
They
cannot
they're
wait.
they are hard hitting. They're
Hey,
great.
I love Mighty Nine, but I still just got one season under their belt right now for me. I haven't watched
Mhm.
because, like I haven't watched the campaigns. I've tried to be as spoiler free as possible.
Oh, wow, I
Um,
can't wait for you to see the
so
next season then.
I'm so I've had some things here and there spoiled just because it's impossible to dodge everything.
Mhm.
But yeah, I still love my Vox crew. Like Vax is still my guy.
You're gonna love
Like,
it. You're gonna love the next
oh
season. I know it.
yeah. But I get drawn. I don't know what it is about your characters, but I always get drawn to yours specifically. I think the most. And I don't know why that is, because it's
Oh
not like they're
shucks.
even like the same, because they're very vastly different between Vax and Caleb, at least in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But there's just something about I think the core element of them that I don't know, it just speaks to me. I think one of the things like with Vax that really kind of opened that door, other than I have like a really strong bias towards characters Raven themed. I don't really can't pin it on the Caleb aspect just yet. Like the thing that really kind of sucks me in to him. But I just love these. I think it's the weird patheticness that
Oh,
comes out of the introduction and the way that he's punishing himself for his mistakes, his past, and he's not really allowing himself to wash that off, almost literally.
how could he? How could he? I you know
Yeah.
I watched
What
the
made you cook
show.
that up?
Why did I do it? Is that the question?
Well, maybe not why did you do it. It's like no poking for spoilers here, but like I'm talking
Mhm.
like creatively. What made you want to explore something like that? Because I know it's like
Well,
sometimes, at least with my experience with DMs and stuff, sometimes it's a little bit of a, I give what I give as far as like the story I want to tell with the character, and then some stuff kind of gets made up on that end. I don't know how
mhm.
much control you have over the story you want to tell versus what Matt throws at you guys sometimes. So I don't want to assume, but
It's hard to even like nail down the border between Matt and us for the characters and his like real quick. I knew Caleb was in a school. I knew that he had been sort of groomed, conditioned, um, and trained to like be a true believer in this like nationalist way that he is.
mm-hmm,
Um, and then he's the villain of his own story. Yes, he is. If he can blacken Trent's eye or take him out, he would. But really, I think that the specter he sees in the mirror every day is himself, not as much Trent.
mm-hmm.
Certainly in the campaign, that is what I was playing with. But the shards being put into the arms, that was Matt's contribution. And but that's all. And he like when I sent off a story to him, he sent back love it and this and this, that being one of them. But I had no
Mm-hmm.
idea like how central this stuff would be to everything. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I'm suddenly doubting if I should like how much I should share, because I don't know if anyone who's going to watch this doesn't know what's coming. But so there's push and pull. But like I said, I think we surprised ourselves, thrilled ourselves with the Vox Machina campaign about how deep we could go with role playing and the depth of the story we could tell. That I think it just said bet. Like I wanted to see if I could use this unique, newly explored medium to go to
Mm-hmm.
the heights and depths of things like Greek tragedy, or a Shakespeare play, or Arthur Miller or something,
Yeah.
and get real sort of dive down into grief and explore that. And then for Caleb, I always thought, there's a 60% chance that I can climb my way through this story towards some sort of redemption arc, or
Mm-hmm.
30% chance I will just dive back into hell and go and like, there was a time where Matt and I had discussions about Caleb. Would he wander away? And I
Mm-hmm.
remember telling me like, I fully support that. That's super cool. If you do that, he's mine.
I've
Uh,
heard that.
yeah. And I thought about it. I considered it, but ultimately, I was so fond of him at that point that I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to hand the controls over to someone else. So I just continued to explore and found that
I
redemption
mean,
arc.
when you embody that for so long, it just feels like I would be like, anytime that happens to me in a situation like that when I'm playing too, it just feels like so unnatural when I'm not at the driver's seat.
Hmm.
So I get that protectiveness, and especially in given like the sensitivity of this character and what you can kind of do with that, because I think a lot of people struggle with dealing with the mistakes they've made. Not that I think everybody's made a mistake like that, but still,
Right, right. That's
but that's like
absolutely
a
right.
big thing to see, like if you can come back from that, like whether it's
Yeah,
intentional or not, because
yeah.
I
I did
think
not
some
kill my
people.
parents, right? But I certainly have done things I wish I haven't in my life. We all have, and
Mhm.
trying to make up for the mistakes of the past, I think, is a pretty universal feeling and desire, and that is definitely a huge part of what I was looking to explore
Yeah, especially
with the
with
story.
this, the demon that you can't really run away from, because it's like you
Hmm.
said, it's you. I don't know. The Mighty Nine came out swinging for me, like in that way, because like you said, it's like we shouldn't write off Vox Machina, and I didn't mean to like belittle it in any kind of way, because like right now, still that's my bread and butter.
Hmm.
And those characters, while they have kind of started off in that art, that kind of archetypical way, they're so much more than that. At least, especially by the point that we're at right now, even
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
compared to everything else, like with everything they've gone through. And I can't wait to see where that goes. But then it's just like we kind of get into their ticks, like what makes them all kind of who they are. I think a little bit deeper into the journey, where in this one we're kind of starting with all of these people in just already in the thick of the mud.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think that makes it, I don't know, that's like it just right out of the gate, watching it, it just immediately ropes you in, I think, emotionally with every one of them, because everybody's just struggling, and not in like this fantasy hero villain magic kind of way, but just in this kind of like very down, dirty, real kind of way in the
Yeah.
each of their struggles.
All of the nine are dealing with pretty real human challenges, and it feels very, it's so human. I think each of their individual stories.
I asked the others this, but I was kind of curious, since I didn't get to ask you, was at the end of this, without any spoilers if possible, what is the overall takeaway you hope the audience who's watching the Mighty Nine for the first time takes away from Caleb and his story?
Um, I speaking in the abstract, um, think I hope that his story helps people understand the importance of empathy. I think that as he comes to grips with owning his past, trying to be patient with himself in addition to other specific people in the story, and the way he approaches everything he does from what you've seen and past it, with the importance of human empathy and caring for people around you. Because it's on his shoulders, it will never be off his shoulders, but he let himself fall into a crowd that dehumanized both himself and others. And that's a very real world issue that exists now, today, around us. It is a failure of human spirit. And you constantly have to see everyone around you in their humanity and try to foster empathy, even when it feels impossible.
Can't agree more. And I think like one thing that I love about role playing games in general, and just storytelling in general, it's always an exercise of experiencing someone else's shoes, like walking in their shoes. When
Yeah.
you really give over to it, there's people that have issues with seeing anything more than just entertainment on the screen or whatever. But when you fully give yourself over to art in any kind of form or medium, it's an exercise in, honestly, it's in empathy. It's a practice of it, I think,
Mhm.
in a lot of ways. It's one of the things that I love about it so much, um, is that experience,
Mhm.
getting into something that's not something I would typically get into, or living a life that I wouldn't otherwise live. And sometimes that comes with all the fun of it, and sometimes it comes with all the thought mechanisms of it, like all the
Mhm.
different things you have to wrestle with and consider. And yeah, there's a empathy issue, for sure, that I think we're dealing with in a lot of
I,
ways.
I also think with role playing, like if you, we have so many sort of um, like a structured view of the world and others, from us, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not like that. That's so different. I could never be this. That doesn't make sense to me. But when you role play regularly, you kind of realize like all those, barriers that you've imagined in life. They're really just a construct. And the more you role play, the
Mm-hmm.
more you realize like, oh, I can just sort of slide over here and see what it's like to be this man or this woman, or it can make you, question things that you were raised to think were immutable, but
Yeah.
that's not the case.
It's just storytelling is just a powerful tool in that way. It's
Mhm.
what's so important. Um, that's why it just means so much to me. It was it started off as an escape, but it's also just this way of like expanding your world in a lot of ways, in your mind and heart, hopefully. Um, I don't know. It's just like, and I think that's one thing too about the Mighty Nine that I think is a lot of fun is it's really kind of diving into a lot of things that are, I think, a little more. It's a lot of it's perspective. There's a lot of things where you're like, who's our vehicle? What are they experiencing? Because it's their version of the events might be different from someone else's, or their life paints something a little bit differently for someone else. I don't know. It's a little more complex. I feel like just getting into it right now. That's just my read on like just with season one and whatnot. Um, it's a little more. It's not as black and white, I think, is what I'm trying to say, and I think that's just indicative of life in a lot of ways. When you're dealing with, you know, because I know I can get pretty emotional at the table and whatnot whenever you're really getting into the heat of the role play. Um, how do you take care of yourself after that? After like maybe a particularly dark session, or maybe just something that happened in your day to day? What's your self care methods or your retreat? How do you take care of yourself or come down from anything like that?
I think the answer for that, for us anyway, is this group. I mean, we're so close, and there have been times where the audience is convinced that two of us are want to murder each other, and then afterwards we laugh or hug it out, or if it's particularly emotional or
Mm-hmm.
dark or heartbreaking, if the story has wound its way there, there's lots of, you know hugs and cool down time and talking about what happened. And yeah, we're just there for each other, and that's the ideal. And it's, if you're into this hobby and you find good people, stick with them. Stick with them. Check in, and again, that's just empathy again too.
Sometimes it's just hard to figure out some of those ways to kind of come down out of those headspaces. I feel like, at least for me particularly, is something I struggle with at times. Is
Sure.
just getting those getting that feeling out in a healthy way. And a lot of that, like you said, is like having a proper support structure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something you guys have, at least pretty consistently, at least.
That doesn't mean, mind you, that we don't sometimes go home and like stare at the ceiling for 3 hours after the
Yeah.
game, like buzzing from the adrenaline of something that happened. Often, like we'll sort of laugh about everything that's happened for 10 or 15 minutes after the game, and then people will all go home, and then there will still be like little messages until
Yeah.
people eventually fall asleep, just as we sort of like process and be friends. That's all.
Outside of what you guys, we talked about Stranger Things earlier. Outside of like everything you got going on, is there anything else that you guys, or you specifically, are filling your time with when you have it, like that you engage in, whether it's media, or do you
I try to get
unwind?
out. I went hiking this morning. I went hiking with my friend Chris Perkins this morning. I took him to a canyon that he hadn't been to before. That was great. I do try to get out as much. My family and I do a lot of national park trips. We tend to
Mm-hmm.
go at least once. We do like one major a year and then like a couple of smaller if we can. Try to play video games, but we really are swamped. I still try to make time to play video games. The last one that really got its teeth into me was Cyberpunk 2077, which
Mm-hmm.
it rocketed to my like top five list. That game launched with problems, but boy, they made up for it. So if people like deep stories and science fiction, it
Mm-hmm.
is excellent, excellent, excellent. Um, I still go to the theater a good amount. I'm reading a couple books at the same time. I kind of juggle too many things and have paralysis often with everything that you can do in 2026.
Mm-hmm.
I have a stack of comic books and graphic novels that are like a to-do list, and I have books, and there's I mean,
Yeah,
forget my Steam library is a mess. There's a million things that I've bought on sale and not played.
yeah, I think after a year and a half, I'm finally on the final chapter of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I've been
Hmm.
trying desperately to finish it so I could start something else.
Hmm. Hmm.
But like you said, sometimes you just sit down. There's just so many options, and you're just like, well, what do I do? And then by that time, you have to move on to responsibilities before you made a decision.
Well, you at least are regularly digesting good serial um, episodic storytelling because it's
I
what
mean,
you do.
I guess that's valid,
Hmm.
but like it's at the same time, like okay. It's the wrestling with the idea
Oh,
that
yeah.
it's only a little bit. Just like you're not wrong.
No, I get you. I get you. Like
Because it's like
I
when
read things just because we're looking for like things to make, and sometimes people will be like,
mm-hmm,
check out this book. This would make a great something. So often I'm reading a
yeah,
book because it came through that way. Doesn't mean it's not a
mm-hmm.
good book, but it's definitely like
A
that's all.
responsibility and
Hmm.
an obligation of sorts. Yeah, and like I don't like take any of her for granted at all. It's just like, but it does like there is like a mental ramp up you have to do to kind of get ready to turn the camera on.
Hmm.
That can be really hard sometimes. I have a hard time switching on, I think, or at least getting to that point. Once I get going, like I can kind of just get going. But it's just like the journey to hitting record
Yeah.
is hard sometimes.
Yeah. It's standing on the diving board looking at the pool.
Mm-hmm. Um, but yeah, I'm super excited for Mighty Nine season 2, and even more excited for Vox Machina 4 and 5.
Well, can't wait for you to see them. Both of them are going to fuck you up in different ways.
Yeah, I'm
They're
not
shaping
looking
up
forward to
real
that,
well.
man.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh boy, you have so much ahead of you. I love that
I'm
you
a
haven't watched the campaign so that you can get slapped with the story turns coming.
yeah. I like I said, I know a couple of things, but I don't know a lot of the details surrounding any of it. So that's it. There's no real way to get completely prepared, no matter what I do. But I'm just excited in general to see how it all how it's all going to come together too, because there's a lot of, especially with them happening simultaneously.
Mhm.
There's a little bit of a feedback loop I've noticed, and things that are being set up in one that has implications in the other, or at least maybe not implications, but like maybe more world building is kind of the better word,
Yeah,
because
there's
there are some
connective
things
tissue,
that
sure.
yeah, because uh little dirtbag showed up. Apparently, I didn't know who he was until later. Little dirtbag
Hmm.
showed up in the last season of Fox Machina, lightening up a town or whatever, and now he's flaying people and doing some god knows what elsewhere. Trent, little
Yes.
bastard.
Spoilers too. If you want to do a little, you might know this already. Go look up what Delilah Briarwood did in her past years.
Yeah. I am I can't wait to see
Mm.
all this shit. And I hope it just keeps snowballing, cuz I really do hope it gets to a point where we get to see all of them like to like go to fruition. I'm still banking that we're going to get a calamity. That would be awesome. I've noticed they've been popping up.
Looking for wood. That's wood right there.
Yeah, I mean, especially with again, Vox Machina and now Mighty Nein, it just keeps dropping these little leads. It's exciting shit, man. And you guys have all the answers, and I'm just sitting here like beating the wall, my head against the wall. But it's good shit, man. I love what you guys do, on and off the screen, man. Just put good into the world.
Well, at this point, the good fortune feels so fortunate that it feels like we have to be worthy of it and keep up with it and try to, give back in any way we can. I do anyway. I feel that very, very strongly. But thank you for the kind word on it all, and thank you for your reaction videos. We love watching you laugh and watch your soul crumble on occasion at opportune moments. So definitely keep it up. Love your reactions.
Hey, there's plenty of hype-inducing moments as well that just, it's like I'm watching the goddamn Super Bowl sometimes, or at least if I cared about that, that's my Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like when this shit's going down, man, it's just so much fun.
Some people's Super Bowl
up in the ride
is an ancient dragon getting bodied.
Why not? Teach their own, man. And I can't wait to see what's around the corner. And keep on keeping on. And thank you so much for being here and spending this time with me to just kind of shoot the shit for a little while. I really appreciate it, especially considering how busy you guys are. Thank you so much. I hope you had great, happy holidays, and here's to 2026, and hopefully being a great year.
Here's to it being a great year. Let's hope. Thank you for having me. Appreciate you.
Anytime, man. Take care.